was on the panel, but is not able to join as something unavoidable has come up. So we have on the panel Mr. Venkat Changavali, former CEO of Emergency Management and Research Institute, EMRI 108, which provides free emergency response services. Under his leadership, 108 services started in Hyderabad in August 2005, and in 6 years reached out to 12 states with 3,200 ambulances. He was also advisor to the government of UP for 26 months, December 14 to March 17, when he conceptualized and launched UP 100, Police Emergency Management System, costing some 2,200 crores and completed in 22 months. Mr. Changavali is a BTech Chemical from NIT Warangal and MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. He was trained at Wharton School, USA, IMD Business School, Lausanne, Switzerland, London Business School, Harvard Business School, and Columbia Business School. Then we have Professor Archana Shukla, is a professor of Human Resource and Organization Behavior and director of Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow. Earlier, she was Dean of IIM Lucknow, Noida campus. Dr. Archana Shukla studied at Center for Organization Development, Hyderabad, and did her PhD from IIT Kanpur. She has been the recipient of the first chairperson of Dr. Ishwar Dayal Chair for Futuristic Issue in the Behavioral Sciences for a period of 2 years from 2015 to 2017. She has extensive experience in advising Indian and multinational corporations and the government. Then we have Dr. Kavita Pathak, Director, Jaipuria Institute of Management. Earlier, she served as Director, Jaipuria Noida campus and Dean Academics at Lucknow campus. She graduated from Isabella Thoburn College, Lucknow, and did her MBA and PhD in marketing from University of Lucknow and a second PhD from University of Queensland, Australia. She has contributed significantly in the growth of Jaipuria Lucknow campus, a premier institute of with high rankings in various categories pan-India. Then we have Shri Alok Ranjan, who will chair and moderate the discussion. He was at the helm of affairs in the Uttar Pradesh government as Chief Secretary. Earlier, he held several key positions in the government, like Agriculture Production Commissioner and Infrastructure and Industrial Development Commissioner. After retirement, he was appointed as the Chief Advisor to the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh with the rank of Cabinet Minister. Currently, he is on board of several reputed organizations. He is also advisor to the board of Arthur D. Little, the world's oldest management consultancy, in their newly established office. Mr. Alok Ranjan has published 2 books on administration, The Collector Today, The Challenges of District Administration, and Towards Adult Literacy in India. His book, Making a Difference, IAS as a Career, published by Penguin, was recently released. He has been president of All India Management Association for 4 years. Shri Alok Ranjan did his BA Honours from St. Stephen's College and MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. I would request Shri Alok Ranjan to take over the session and begin with his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mahato. Thank you very much for the introduction. And we have a very illustrious panel out here. And looking at the topic, I think this does need a very illustrious panel, a very interesting and a vibrant kind of topic. which IMI has decided for this year's management seminars and webinars all over the country. Thriving on uncertainty, managing radical change. I must say that we'll be here. The pattern is that I'll speak for a few moments, my initial remarks on this topic, and then I'll be requesting the three panelists who are here to give their views on this issue, and maybe then I'll sum up. There is a time constraint. We like to wind it up around by 6 o'clock. So please, 10 to 12 minutes is what I would request each speaker to focus on, and then if any questions are there towards the end, we can have a few questions also. Well, managing change, I think we all keep talking about managing change, and I think for any leader, whether in government or in the private sector or corporate sector, or in the academic circles or anywhere, the biggest challenge always is how should he manage change? Because change is, as they say, as a cliche goes, is the only constant. It is endemic. Constantly things are changing. The social environment, the political environment, the economic environment, the organizational environment, everything will keep changing almost on a daily basis. And a leader has to be open, flexible, and dynamic enough to respond to these kind of changes. And how well he can handle these changes determines the quality of the leadership that he can give to the organization. And whether he can take the organization forward in a particular direction or he is not able to do so will depend upon how he responds to the changing environment. Now, there are two things. In my experience, I found one is that the manager or the leader, whether he himself induces that change. Now, he is aware of change taking place all around him, and then he induces that change in that organization by taking the lead and bringing about that change. And that, he brings people out of their comfort zone. In an organization, it always happens that people are working in their own comfort zones, and they're very used to working in a particular style with a particular work culture. And if they are pushed out of this, then they don't feel very happy about it. And there's a tendency to resist change. So the moment change is induced by the top leadership, he'll find that there is resistance to that change. And I hear many people saying, oh, I wanted to do this, I want to do that, but somehow the organization people did not allow me to do it. They resisted the change. There were, obstacles on my path. I couldn't manage to do it. But the whole issue is that the whole process has to be managed. That's the crucial word. As it says, manage change. So if you want to bring in change, you have to manage change. And the best way to manage change is through communication, through proper communication. Because as I said, you're taking people out of the comfort zone. And if you're doing that, first of all, you must talk to them. Change cannot be top down. It cannot be just you decide that this will be how we will change things and you expect people to follow it. They will not do it. Even if they do it reluctantly, they will not own it. They will not be with you in that change. So first thing is that you can communicate to them the need for change. Make it a participative exercise. Involve them in the whole exercise, your people with whom you're bringing about that change. Take their ideas and somehow then slowly you build it up in a manner that they start accepting the kind of change dynamics that you're bringing about. And not only accept, that slowly it should reach a stage where they own it. Once they own it, only then can change be successful. If you want to bring about large scale change, small changes are all right. If you want to bring out a major change, this is how it has to be done. For instance, let us take the example of what happened to the farm laws in India. I've always felt there was a need for structural reforms in the agriculture sector. Their definite need was there. And these reforms were trying to address some of these structural constraints which were there in the agriculture sector, to be fair to them. But somehow there was so much of resistance from the farmers and they had to be taken back. Why? Because somehow this major structural change was not communicated to the farm community, or the farm community was not involved, or the stakeholders not involved in the process. And once they were not involved in the process, this kind of a radical change, the important word out here again is radical. When you say radical change or a structural change, which you're trying to bring about, unless you involve the people, then there all kind of apprehensions are there. Why this change? How is it going to harm us? Maybe negative impulses take over. And as a result, whatever you're wanting to communicate, you're not able to communicate, as happened in this case. So, managing radical change, I think this is very important. As I said, communication, participative exercise, convincing people about the need for change, and then taking them along in the change process. Let them feel empowered in the entire change process. I think that is very important. The other most important thing about this topic, very interesting, is thriving on uncertainty. Now, it says not only uncertainty, but you have to thrive on it. So you need a kind of a leader who is very happy with an uncertain environment. And let me share with you, there are very few people who are like that. Many people in administration, I've seen most of us, they like things to be status quo. They like things to be stable. They don't like an unstable equilibrium. They don't like an uncertain situation. They like things to be, somehow predictable. They don't want unpredictable things to come because that, kind of shakes them up also. So it'll be very difficult to find a leader who will really thrive on uncertainty. But then it is a great quality to have. You must thrive on that if you want to be a real leader, because today, I think the fast changing technological environment is there. It's a disruptive technological environment where almost every day technology is changing, and technology is changing the way people live, the way people believe, the way people talk, the way people relate with each other. And if this is happening at such a fast pace, then somehow you have to have a person who is dynamic enough, open enough to respond to this kind of changes which technology is bringing in every day. Now, again, there are two things about uncertainty. One is risk and one is uncertainty. I know in business, every business or every government job also, or a bank job, or anywhere you are, you have to have risks. When you take decisions, no decision is perfect. You can't have on full information. It's always based on a certain amount of information, and the environment may change after some time. So there's always a risk. So you have to, but those risks can be analyzed. Every company now has a risk mitigation, a committee which goes into these and analyzes the risk. For instance, I'm on the board of an automobile component manufacturing company. Now they have to keep saying what is going to happen to the auto industry. What is the risk associated with the electric vehicles coming over and taking over from the internal combustion engine? What are the risks involved by the slowdown in the economy? What are the risks involved by changing technology in the car sector or automobile sector, or the change in demand pattern? So various risks are involved, but these are risks which you can anticipate, predict, and plan for them. The risk management and risk analysis can be done. However, uncertainty goes a little further than this. Uncertainty is something which you can't, it is unpredictable. You can't really plan for it the way you plan for risk management or risk analysis. Uncertainty comes up when something happens which, like a black swan event, or nothing can be greater example than this, than the corona. What greater uncertainty can be there than the COVID? Who could have anticipated, whether in government or in business? Even the government, when it responded, well, they did not know really how to respond. First, they had a big lockdown. Then they found that it led to a migrant crisis, migrant labor moving from one place to another. By the time the crisis was full blown, then the response came to that. Many people suffered in the process. Then economy went down by 23%. A lot of people lost jobs. A lot of people went into poverty. Then they opened up the economy slowly. Then again came the second wave, for which nobody was really prepared. Nobody anticipated the second wave. The response for the district administration, which was good to a large extent in the first phase, was found wanting in the second phase because somehow they did not, or even the experts, or even the political leadership, or anybody could not really anticipate the extent of the second wave, the way it came, and the kind of challenges that it would throw. What could be more uncertain than that? But yet, after that came the response to the vaccination, a vaccination drive which was conducted brilliantly all over the country, beautifully managed by the entire political leadership, by the administrative leadership, by the doctors, by the civil servants, and by the last mile worker on the, at the rural level. So this is, I think, there can be no more greater glaring or classic example of an uncertain situation than the pandemic has been. And I think everybody in its own way responded to it. I found, your academic institutions, two of the panelists out here are directors of eminent academic institutions. They would be having their own stories on how with the campus, being shut down or only allowing online courses, how they managed this for 2 years and the uncertain environment. Nobody could have guided them on how to handle this situation because there's a once in a lifetime kind of a situation which came up. But in many companies also, I heard they responded by cutting down on costs, cutting down on frills, cutting down on unnecessary expenditure, widening scope of the market and going in areas where they could go into. So all these things happened. Many companies took advantage. Things like company like Byju's, they reached the top in this kind of an environment because online classes was the main thing. So many other companies almost shut down. Hospitality sector, restaurant sector, they had no option where to go. So uncertainty is like this is a big issue, and this kind of events keep happening. Maybe a natural calamity, or maybe something like may happen, or something very even like changing a government can be a very uncertain situation because one government may be having certain policies, another government may come up with another set of policies. There is uncertainty. You don't really know. You're planning today on a certain policy framework. That policy framework might undergo a huge change. So how do you respond to that? So all said and done, I think managing or thriving on this kind of a situation of uncertainty and bringing about radical change is, I think, a very great quality, a great attribute, which can only be there if there is a leader who has those essential attributes to understand the environment, number one, to then respond to the environment, and also to communicate and take people along in that whole process of change. I'll here mention the biggest changes. Venkat Singhaveli, my friend, is here. We both worked together in the Dial 100 thing change in Uttar Pradesh. Oh, what a remarkable change. You know, the police system. I mean, 20 minutes, the police is reaching even in the remotest village of, say, Devariya or Maharajganj or anywhere. Can you imagine this kind of change in the police? Otherwise, people used to say, we call the police is not coming for 2 days, 3 days, nobody is listening to us. And here within 20 minutes, the police force is reaching, just on dialing 100, it goes and reaches you within 20 minutes. What a change. But believe me, Venkat Singhaveli would share his thoughts with you. Who were the people who resisted that change the most? The police force. You wouldn't believe it. It was resisted most by the police force. By the police force felt that they were losing their source of power. The source of power was the police thana, where the person has to go and stand and register his complaint. That is going. Police is reaching the spot. So the thana is losing its, its sense of power. So they resisted at maximum. And so we had to work a lot on this to bring about that behavioral change. We had trained people accordingly. Then SOPs were worked out. Venkat will share with you. SOPs were worked out. SOPs were transmitted to the whole staff. And then this change was brought about, and then this was a great success as it was. So similarly, what Venkat has worked on the 108 ambulance service, it is we brought it. He was the pioneer in Andhra, but Uttar Pradesh also we took over the 108 ambulance, and 108 ambulance is also a great innovation. Imagine an ambulance reaching you within 20 minutes, anywhere in the remotest part of the state. What a great innovation! What a great achievement! But not easy at all. This kind of a change when you bring it about, it is not accepted even by the stakeholders. If it is not accepted even by those who are working there, you have to communicate that change. You have to bring about that change slowly. Take the people along with you, and then when they realize the results, everybody follows. So I'll just stop out here, not take more time. I just wanted to quote these two examples. I'll leave this now to our illustrious panel to take it forward. Whom should I request? Shall I request Dr. Archana Shukla of IIM Lucknow to begin?
Thank you, Alok ji. When Alok ji is the moderator, job is much easier because he lays the foundation so well and he paints all the dimensions in one go. So now I need to pick and choose that what part I would want to go a little more deeper into it. So as we already talked about, the theme is very relevant and contextually relevant, thriving on uncertainty and managing radical change. We have already gone through such a uncertainty where I think calling it an uncertainty will be a little unfair. It was like a disruption. So let us use that word disruption. And we were all disrupted. We were caught unaware, actually. Saying it that nobody knew what to do. Nobody was there to navigate through your way. Nobody was there to give you any planning. All those strategy, planning, processes, all that resource control was not working well, right? So you needed to find your own mechanism that how to continue with the system, how to not have this disruption impact your business in which you are in, which is imparting education. And, it wasn't an easy journey at all. So I still remember that though it is in March 2019, when the first wave came in, when there was no even the readiness with the B schools to go online completely and encourage online education. And as you said, that the people who are the stakeholders, even they were not, liking this transition at all. Even though we were talking about technology is a big enabler and technology we should adapt and going digital is a way forward. Even then, the COVID, when initial stage came in, I think during COVID, we not only got into the digital adaptation, but it was an acceleration completely. And most of the interfaces with these stakeholders, they went online and we continued to do online. There were a lot of stakeholders, right? So I will not go into that how the school, went through this disruption and how we got into this, because now that's the gone story. But now the question is that having faced one disruption, what are the lessons learned? And is it the end of the disruption, or we are going to see many more disruptions in future?
Ukraine war is coming now.
And absolutely. And this was, see, again, last 2-3 days, and everybody was not predicting war. And they said that there are undercurrents and it might happen. And today morning you say, okay, the war is already declared, invasion is already there. And look at the panic and look at the impact all over, since we are so connected today. So whatever happens in one area will happen in the other area as well. Second, this is on the economic front that we are, likely to suffer the disruptions of any kind. Second one, I feel, is very important, where I would, as a B school who is emphasizing on the sustainability and program on sustainability. So we realize that global warming and all the climatic changes are also becoming a big source of bringing us in the future unprecedented kind of disruptions. If we do not wake up right now, and if we do not take a right call, which we need to take in order to control some of the adverse impacts which are having on our planet, on our environment, and companies are definitely doing some part of it, but then they are incremental only. And as Alokji said, no, that you need leaders who are courageous, who are bold, who can actually make a right trade-off, and who can actually put things in perspective and say that, okay, we will not compromise the long term for the short term gain. And this is not an incremental cosmetic looking good factor on our thing that we say ESG reporting is good enough to show the care about the planet. And we have already done our bit. So I think that is not serving the purpose. And therefore we have to move little beyond, and we need to find that how do we create that supportive ecosystem, long-term strategies where we can, take proactive control on some of the scenarios which are likely to come because of this. And events have already happened last year. If you remember, the cities were flooded where never the floods was seen. You see the, what has happened on our hilly areas, what happened across the globe. The countries were drowned like we were seeing any flood in nearby, village or any other place. So these are unnoticed, they are not actually something which cannot be conceptualized. But since we are not capturing it today very well, that what are the kind of, factors, these are weak signals. They are not coming into our mind today that they are going to impact our life. So we are not paying attention to that. Now, all stakeholders put together, whether it is a policymaker, whether the government, whether the customers or the consumers or society or any other, I think everybody has to come together in order to take some proactive control on that. So first disruption, I am scared of that it is going to hit us in some form or the other, and this is going to be a way of life now. So organizations have to prepare themselves to deal with this kind of and disruptions. Then I feel that, how do we talk about some of the relationships which have undergone changes in the recent past, like employee-employer relationship. Even that has brought a lot of discontinuities in the expectation, discontinuities in their, the way people used to work, and some amount of dehumanization of the relationship also. The online, and you are getting used to online, and people are not meeting. You are saying team building, you need to work in team, but teams are not meeting at all. So everybody is, during pandemic, everybody is onboarded online, everybody is inducted online, and you are also becoming a contributing member online only. So this has happened, and this is where I'm using a word, little dehumanization factor as well. And most of the organizations found it very convincing that, okay, we will not call the employees in the workplace and it will be working from home. But then working from home has its own advantages and disadvantages both, and employees are giving all kinds of feedback. So we need to think about this changing kind of relationship between the employee-employer and the notion of the workplace itself and the organization itself. We need to invest in the organizations which are resilient organization, and where we are also making it more sustainable, more inclusive. So all those factors we need to take care. And something which I would want to focus on being a management education, as I started with, that what kind of leadership, competencies are needed today when we are talking about this kind of future, this kind of expectation that disruptions are going to be there, and we have to deal with them, and they will necessitate radical changes as well. So the people who are sitting on the driving seat will have to demonstrate the ability to navigate through these uncertainties and find the ways that how to find the options and how to find the solutions to deal with that. So what are the kinds of skill sets the B school should look forward to, and what kind of, therefore, changes in the curriculum to have this kind of right kind of mindset and skill set in the future managers. I'm talking about from the B school point of view, that we needed to have some entrepreneurial spirit, the managers or leaders, as we are saying, leaders who are navigating through these tough times and sitting on the driver's seat. So they need to conceptualize. So they need to, make sense out of the environment. Data, we have been talking about data, and data is embedded everywhere today. But then that data again has to be, somebody has to make sense out of that data. So that training has to be given, that what and how to make sense out of this and clarify that, make way for yourself that this is what you need to do. So data is very important. Digital competencies are very important now. You need to think, in terms of digital, and there is no, all the processes or systems. So digital, transformations are unavoidable, and leaders need to be, very, very comfortable with this interface as well. And resilience is another thing which I find that leaders need to have, and these are not a very normal scenarios, and I can talk about my own experience, that you need to create not a panic in yourself, and you need to also not lose the sense of excitement. You are like a buffer. So how to keep your compose and calmness. And therefore I find that resilience is not an easy thing. Resilience is, again, your ability to deal with the adverse scenarios. Now, in that adversity, how do you deal with stressful situation, which is unavoidable, which is going to come? So these are all very easy things to say, but I think it is not very easy when you confront with those scenarios, that how people actually, take this forward. So the courses and the entire curriculum today, I think, has to be driven by how to promote entrepreneurship and how to promote this risk-taking ability, how to promote this data making sense ability more and more, how to promote out-of-box thinking. All of it we are talking from, for so long, but I think today this is needed much more, because a structured environment are not going to be there. Linear thinking is not going to take us forward in navigating through these uncertainties and discontinuities. So problem solving also is not going to be an easy thing. Nobody can simplify and give it back to us and saying that this is what it is and this is what you need to do. So therefore, this is something which is a collective and collaborative effort, that how do we make sense and out of the data which is available with us, and how do we experiment, because that experimentation is very important. Alok ji has already spoken about that, how communication is very important, persuasion is very important. Stakeholders are always wanting to understand what is in it for me. So one has to be able to explain that why it is important. So it has to be purpose driven. So leadership is about, the creating that meaningful purpose, translate this whole thing in terms of that this is what we are collectively wanting to do, and this is what it is if we don't do. So larger purpose should be the mantra, and we need leadership with this kind of challenge seekers mindset, who are ready to set this larger agenda and are willing to do some experiments, and they will be requiring bold steps. Like if we say we need to save the planet, we know the reality that even now when we say we have done away with the single use of plastic, we know the story that what it is. Have we really done away with the single use of plastic? right? Have we been able to change the mindset of the, stakeholders who are still carrying it and using it? So it means that there has to be a deeper engagement with all these stakeholders, and collaborative processes have to be built in order to take these radical changes forward. So leadership is more salient according to me, and I look forward to more leaders driving these changes, because these changes are not going to be driven on their own. You need leadership who needs to conceptualize, who need to translate that what is the doable step, and how to take it forward. So with this, I hand over to other panelists. Thank you. And if any question answer, because this is a long story, so if we start building up on entire thing, I think it will take a lot of time. So I just wanted to talk about these 2-3 things. That leadership is very important according to me. The mindset of the manager is very important to me, that who are going to assume leadership positions and driving these changes, and also how to make sense out of in this radical, disruptive environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Archana Shukla ji. And may I now request Dr. Kavita Pathak to come in and give her views.
So thank you so much, Archana ji, Alok ji, Mr. Changwali, and other eminent members, Mr. Mathur of LMA fraternity. So, okay, you've sandwiched me nicely between two giants. I take that. Archana, followed by another illustrious speaker. I'll bite that bullet and see what we can do together. So when I looked at this topic, and since I research high technology markets, it's a very interesting domain to look at, and a very potent question that you can pose in front of the organizational leaders. I go back to Alice in Wonderland, and I quote, I think it's one of my most favorite portion of the storyline, Alice's conversation with the Cheshire Cat. So, Alice asked the Cheshire Cat, who was sitting in a tree, what road do I take? The cat asked, where do you want to go? I don't know, Alice answered. Then, said the cat, it really doesn't matter, does it? So, that if you are not sure about the totality of your vision as an organization, the mission and the objectives, a very important question that often comes to my mind is, how have some organizations stood up and took the challenge much better than the others? How have some crumbled totally while others have thrived? Is it only the market dynamics, the demand and supply conditions, or has it something else to do with maybe the element of the organizational leadership and teams, their DNA, their structure, and which is built not through one process of crisis management or crisis handling. It is built through a successive series of shared vision, and you build it into your DNA and say that come what may, here we are responding to the crisis in any manner possible. Or is it, in case of many other organizations, a sporadic response to the changes in the external environment? Both ways we can look at it. In terms of planning the change, in terms of driving the change, we have brilliant case studies worldwide and even in India. The uncertainty that, of course, the largest one that has faced us, as Archana ji rightly pointed out, in last few years, 2 years has been COVID. But COVID or beyond, before that, organizations were coming under the pressure of, we were talking of IT taking up, the business model canvassing, how your core competency, which is built around your own secret space or your own secret salt, is getting into the hands of a third party who's going to build business solutions for you, which are not unique. They are scalable, they are saleable to a third party. So now, where does the competitive advantage come from? So that challenge of uncertainty has been hovering on our heads pre-COVID, will continue to hover on our heads post-COVID as organizations, unless we think that we are in a monopoly space. Even if we are in a monopoly space, a market can die. A complete total market can be demolished. We have seen that because of technology interventions, because of bottom line considerations, and because of the solutions that are available. As a result, uncertainty and living with it has probably become more of a way of life for the millennials and the younger lot of people. our generation is, our generation of organizations also are finding ways and means of onboarding the teams, onboarding the organizations into understanding, unpacking uncertainty and dealing with it and driving change management. You have used the term radical change, managing radical change. Obviously, tough times will call for tough actions, and that radicalness can be defined uniquely for every organization. For one, it could be the intensity of technology change or shift that you need to make. For the other, it could be the rigidity in the mindset of people and the amount of force you need to apply to change their mindset. Third could be the business model that you are using right now could become redundant in the space in which you are. So all of that taken together, perhaps is going to create multiple challenges for me to deal with as an organizational leader. When I try to unpack the term, uncertainty, it's a simple Wikipedia search, so pardon me for that. It says lack of certainty can be read as, or in organization, when you lose certainty around people. Now, what that means is, will people stay or will people leave? Will people grow or will they not? Will they buy my agenda or will they not, right? So one uncertainty within the organization woven around people, business processes. What I'm doing today could be made redundant tomorrow by external forces rather than internal forces. My structure of the organization, I created a monolith, and now I'm realizing the weight of it. Is it relevant, contemporary, useful? Is it going to be revenue driving in the future? Those are the questions that organizations often don't ask. They, especially in higher education space, with the academic credit bank, with UGC allowing 20% online and online degrees to organizations. It's a question we need to turn back and ask ourselves. Are monoliths like us, or are strong structural institutions like us that are based on brick and mortar models, are we ready to embrace the change? What will it take to, one example, and Archana ji would agree with me, when we started lecture recording, lecture capturing in our institution, the vehemence with which it was opposed, we wanted to use it not for any other reason, but for, the students to avail that part of learning at any point in time in the day and not lose out on it. It was seen as a surveillance mechanism. It has taken aggressive concept selling for people to be onboarded, and then eventually they bite the bullet and they are agreeing. Similarly, it says lack of certainty about organizational objectives. So here now, there then. And COVID has probably been the one which has shifted the focus for each one of us sitting here. For our families, for the units that we serve in, the focus has shifted in terms of objectives. Top lines have become less meaningful. Bottom line management has become more meaningful, and there are other things that you're worrying about, safety, like Archana ji said, that dehumanization of communication within the organizations. And I find that people are lonelier, people are living in houses. I mean, think of the clerical level staff in our kind of organizations who are attending online meetings in a house that is 2-bedroom house. There are children, there is kitchen where pressure cooker is blowing the whistle. So there are all kinds of issues that are cropping up, which the models are yet to emerge. The organizations are yet to respond to it. I have said work from home. Does it mean that 9 o'clock when I'm eating my roti, you will intrude into my privacy? Yes, you will. You're doing just that, any which way. Coming to organizational culture, toughest nut to crack. Most tough nut to crack, the older and more deep-seated an organization into its comfort zone, more challenging it is to change. My challenge. So, Hansab, I think your phone is not on mute. Are we doing a debate? I'm kind of lost.
अक्टूबर में जाना था, फिर उसने कहा कि दिसंबर में जाएगा.
Mathur sir, I think it needs your intervention, sir.
Obviously,
Siddharth, please mute Mr. Mumtaz.
Okay. Okay, so and similarly culture, and we are a 26-year-old institution, and we realized that we could do double the achievements or attainments that we could. And there are, obviously, I come back to this is the laying of the discussion part, but I come to the implications of managing change, radical change at that. When we look at the theory of competitive advantage and multiple sources from which competitive advantage flows to the organization. A now somewhat outdated view is the resource-based view of competitive advantage, which says organizations have very rare, inimitable natural resources, so they have a competitive advantage. In the age of technology and replicable models, this theory has come under attack. The second one is the one that I work with. It's a resource-based, the dynamic capabilities model. It says that you need to build, integrate, and reconfigure organizational routines in response to the dynamic environment. And this is what I'm going to be talking about. How agile are we? Archana ji used the term resilient. Resilience is a part of your DNA or not. Agility is a part of your DNA or not. You know, if those elements are missing in the basic DNA, any kind of change management would be a very loosely held exercise. And who has to build it in? Obviously, it's the job of the top leadership to bring that kind of a perspective in. So I'm looking at these elements and I'm confounded by a question that what is the degree of tolerance of uncertainty among organizational leaderships and organizational citizens? This tolerance of uncertainty has to probably go up in due course of time. We do need to train our workforce, our people, our leaders to be ready for external shocks and for absorbing those shocks. And there has to be the internal cultural setup and mindset, a collective mindset that we are in a state of readiness. Change is going to happen and we have to be ready. So I look at it as a managerial question as well. So managing radical change, my one proposition is that organizations have to stop viewing themselves as a static set in time entity and have to find avenues of building dynamic capabilities, which means routines that are, which you build, integrate, and reconfigure on a regular basis. As an academic institution, Archana ji knows and I know the trouble of shifting gears between online classes, physical classes, hybrid classes, online exam, offline exam, proctored exam, non-proctored exam. So you are in a complete changing and shifting of the gear exercise. Unless we have those capabilities embedded into the organizational DNA, it will remain a challenge. Second, and very, very important, as we saw in the entire process, continuously connect with people. The dialogue with people is, I think, a savior in multiple ways. Number one, your entrepreneurial vision is translated and transformed into the entrepreneurial vision of every individual member of the organization. Alok ji, you talked about ownership. Where will ownership come from? Archana ji said, so what is in it for me? Rightly said so. It's your, and they say culture eats strategy for breakfast. So, unless you are able to create that culture, all your strategic daydreaming will remain a daydream only, completely. And this is where I put points of how do you create ownership and leadership? How do you let people know? So I'll give you one example from my side, and then I'll probably, this is what I do. I have started an OT intervention at Jaipuria, Lucknow. And I tried to create a big picture after spending 1,200 hours talking to different teams of faculty and staff. I did focus group discussions with them. And then we arrived at a big picture. We said we wanted to be the institution of choice for all our stakeholders. And then we broke it down to minor objectives. And then I asked the teams to go back to the drawing board and think of what will take us there. I didn't do it. They became a part, staff became a part, faculty became a part. We have been holding town hall meeting for last 5 months, where everything is up there in a transparent manner. What is working, what is not working, where do we need to go? Faculty has become, has always been vocal at Lucknow, but staff has become so vocal beautifully. And I would love to tell you that the entrepreneurship, as a result of those interventions, we now have one-stop student experience center created, We have had a doctor's felicitation ceremony at the campus as a result of that intervention, and none of it I can take the credit for. All of it came from the team. So the team's active and agile entrepreneurial outlook is extremely important. Are your teams innovative? Are your teams proactive? Are your teams risk-taking? If you are that as a leader, you will definitely translate that for the teams. But please remember, leaders are all about passing on the credit and taking the blame. That's the one lesson I have had in a very limited 5-year span of being a leader, that you have to pass on the credit, you have to take the blame. And that's how the team confides in you. Last point rather. I'd say our organizational structures need a close relook. We need more synergistic and fungible organizational structures. We need to cut the silos across. If you need the agility and the resilience and the quick responsiveness to the uncertainty, a very rigid silo-based organizational structure is not going to help us. We as leaders need to think how those silos can be cut, how more fungible and synergistic organizational climate can be created, because uncertainty is riding on our shoulders and change management is not an option. It is something we have to do if we are to survive. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavita ji. And now for the last speaker for today, Mr. Venkat Chengaveli.
Thank you, Alok ji. Nice seeing you. Thank you, Alok. Ms. Mathur, a great Dr. Archana and Dr. Kavita, the way you put the things in perspective. And I can only speak from my experience. These two words, one is radical change, second is uncertainty. Radical change, as Alok ji mentioned, these two projects when I was CEO of 108. When I started in 2005, when I joined, everybody abused me. Corporate CEO leaving the corporate job of a German multinational and coming to start ambulance system for MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, coming to run ambulance. What nonsense. That is the kind of change I have to cope at home and the friends. And then work with the governments. You're gone mad or what to work with governments is another one. Whereas I started on April 15, 2005. In 4 months' time, I launched 15 ambulances when there was no one single number. There was no ambulance standard design. There was no paramedic inside the ambulance. There was no training. There was no PPP in healthcare of that size. In that context, managing the change there is one now, where I was to launch in 4 months in Andhra Pradesh, then went to today, it's running around 20 states. I myself launched in 12 states, 43 crores population when I was there. Saved in the first 6 years itself, 520,000 lives. We delivered 1.6 lakhs deliveries were conducted inside the ambulance. Maternal mortality reduced in some districts by 3 to 4%. Unimaginable. And when the 2005, when they called me to US, only 10 people heard my story, but 9 people heard my story. Whereas in 2009, when they recognized me to give me an award, there were more than 900 people in the audience. I think in a radical change, what you need to do is do the work. Recognition will come automatically. Same way in UP 100, when I came, it was Chief Minister and Chief Secretary. Mr. Alok ji was the Chief Secretary and Akhilesh was Chief Minister. When they called me, I never worked with police before. And they trusted me and said, we want you to do what you did for 108 for UP. I didn't know much of Hindi. I didn't know UP. It's all, and then police against, and who is this guy coming here as an advisor? But I defined PPP as political will. 1P is political will of the Chief Minister. Second one is the police commitment and the public servants commitment. And third P is a private professional advisor who is not connected with this project, who doesn't have any experience. Let him come and do something radically different. I'm happy. This is the best 2.5 years in my life I had in UP. I am proud to say that in 11 months, we have finalized the processes, technology, all that in 11 months we completed. 22 months after that, every state wanted to launch Haryana could not launch. It's not calling me as advisor. They cannot launch because it's a complete managing a radical change requires support from all stakeholders. Telangana wanted to launch, no. Like that, state after state wanted to launch. Even today, after 5 years, nobody could replicate this project of this order of 75 districts, 22 crores population and 22 months, 2020 is not is something a textbook case. Now, I always said managing a radical change, there are 4 elements required. I call it as a LITE, L-I-T-E. L stands for leadership. Leadership which sets a direction, which aligns, which motivates. What Professor John Porter writes in his book, the setting a direction is the vision and strategies, aligning people with the communication to get commitment, and then the motivation, energizing and igniting them. I remember at the end of the 21st, 26 months on 19th November 2016, when we launched, we can see the energy amongst all stakeholders in UP. Now, this is the light where, like leadership, as you rightly said, innovation, something different completely. Number itself, we call it as UP 100, same 100. Then the emergency response center, the way we built in that campus of 8 acres. Nowhere in the world, police have got 2 lakh square feet of the building and something very aesthetic, something very functional. And same way, all women officers, 700 of them, women call center officers, first time private, well-dressed individuals, well-trained. Technology, we spent 300 crores of capital expenditure technology, 300 crores on operational expenses, and then execution, getting it done on time. One is, I was reviewing every Wednesday, Thursday, I used to be there with the ADGP and Home Secretary. Every month, every 2 weeks, Alokji was reviewing. And every month, CM was reviewing. No other state has followed this system of reviewing and everybody owning up this project. And that's where the radical change, giving one integrated police emergency system has happened in UP with this kind of light principles followed of LIT. Second word I would like to elaborate is uncertainty. Uncertainty can happen at individual level. It can happen at organization level. It can happen at country level. To me, at individual level, when my boss asked me in 91 on 28th May, I heard that you don't respect me. I said, I'll be dishonest if I say no. I lost my job. But that created uncertainty and it created a crisis. Because I was honest enough to say, I'll be dishonest if I say no. That was a crisis at individual level. When I got a tuberculosis detected and doctors saying it's a cancer, that's the uncertainty at individual level. How do you cope with it? I had a lecture in IIM Indore next day, 6th of July. But I went. At organization level, my boss, whom I respected as God, declares to the media that he is a fraud. Respected chairman of an IT company suddenly says, I have done a 7,000 crore scam. That morning, imagine what happens to me on 7th Jan 2009. The one who funded 108 project to go across to 12 states suddenly says, I'm going to jail. And then at country level, the COVID, what happened last 2 years. I would like to propose, I would like to elaborate in the next 5 minutes, as I was saying, whether it is uncertainty or managing a radical change, principles exactly remain same, what I practiced on. Whether it is 10800, whether it is, this kind of uncertainty, crisis, what happened to me or to the country or to the organizations. First one is objective of managing this is resolve to stand up and fight this crisis, this uncertainty, and face undeserved criticism during that time. I don't think from 2005 to now, I have not faced criticism which is undeserved. But I remember one chief secretary in Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Mohan Kanda, told me, if somebody is criticizing you, when you are doing some work for government, that means you are doing a good work. Please develop that thick skin. And from that time, last 17 years, I'm used to it. But you have to stand up to face that undeserved criticism. Second one is, I am playing this to win this game. I'm not here to lose. I want to win, for which I have to reinforce my core values and core business. So importance of leadership, always in a radical change, or COVID times or crisis times, when the going is roughest, leadership matters. In normal times, leadership, I don't care. Anybody talks about it. It's only what I did when Razu went to jail. Those 4 months, it has become a case in Wharton. It became a London Business School, and your Russian Business School. It has become what you do in crisis. And when you bring a radical change, when you read, it has become a case in Harvard School, London Business School. They wrote a case. Normal times, leadership is not important really. When the going is roughest, that's where I felt I have to do much more than what I did. In terms of trouble, leaders should actually act emotionally, not just intellectually. Any leader can normal times intellectual. This is the time you have to act emotionally in addition to being intellectually. Actually, I embrace the discomfort actually during these times, whether it's managing change or uncertain times. I embrace the discomfort and push the level of achievement to the higher. Therefore, critical issue of a leader is faith. Do I believe that I have to come out? Do I believe that I have to win? My passion during COVID times, passion during, for me, frankly, UP 100, I came only because when they called me, I didn't ask money. I didn't come for a salary. I didn't take 1 rupee of salary those 26 months. But there was a passion displayed at every level of leadership there. Alokji writes in his book, Alokji talks today. There is a passion at his level, at the CM level, and at my level as an advisor. And there is a authenticity of these leaders when they spoke about this project. It is not fake statements made them saying we will reach in 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. There was authenticity. That's what is the importance of leadership in crisis. So what needs to be done? What I have done. For example, with our stakeholders, I built a positive image during these times. It's extremely important among stakeholders, whether they're employees, whether they're suppliers, whether they're customers, whether they're business partners, government, media. Building that positive image was extremely important. I did. Second one is I treated each of these stakeholders with dignity, with respect. Normal time, forget it. But to bring a change, to overcome this uncertainty, giving respect, treating with dignity is extremely important. That's why it required much more of my humility, much more before a constable, before how many times the collectors and SPs did not offer me chair when I was visiting these 10 districts before, before even conceptualize the project. But same guys later, at that launch time, they were, saying, sorry, we could not even think that this will ever happen in UP. Forget it, I said, at my home only, my wife didn't say. When I said I leave Chennai and come and start 1 year, she said no. When I said I am going to Lucknow, said for what? You already built a good image so far, why are you losing it? But on the contrary, this is one project which built my image almost 10 to 20 times in the country. Many people ask me, are you IPS, are you IAS? I said no. But I had the fortune of working in 20 states, 20 chief ministers, 20 state governments, IAS officers and IPS officers. I'm not sure any IAS officer would have worked in 20 states. Their batchmates, seniors, juniors, you will know. But I worked with the health and home departments. And what a privilege it is to bring a radical change. Then, of course, the most important thing is employees. Developing trust and openness with them. As what Alokji said, communicating frequently during crisis time. Earlier, I was talking only monthly once to the employees. Crisis time, first 1 week, every day, when Razu went to jail, I used this word. sun may go after 6 o'clock in the morning. Razu may have gone to jail, but 108 will remain, emergencies will remain, ambulances have to work. Whether somebody is there or not doesn't matter. I think that kind of motivating employees was required frequently, and sharing the progress, sharing the plans, motivating them in a very, very simple language. I cannot afford to use complicated English at that time, crisis time. Promoting meritocracy is what is important during crisis time. You have to perish mediocrity. I sacked more number of people during the uncertain times than normal times because performance is important. I practiced what is called tough empathy with employees. Next one, what I did was relating to processes. I had all the time. Let me challenge the status quo. What's happening today? I need to change this processes across, whether it's people related or customer related, review them, upgrade them, automate them to meet today's requirements. I didn't compromise on the performance during the uncertain times. Absolutely no, I put more pressure internally for superior performance during the time, conducted performance review meetings without fail every month when I was CEO of 108, when I was advisor of 100. Ultimately, with our leadership, what I needed to act, what I acted was, I challenged the assumptions. Everybody said, district, you need one call center in every district. Or at least 8 zones, you require one each in zone. To get to one center in UP, Lucknow, it took so much time. I challenged the assumptions about the customers, about the market, about the competition, about technology. I created new vision and strategies. I ensured there is no gap between strategy, structure, and systems. I'm happy they allowed me to do a different structure, calling it ITEX, a different structure to manage the UP 100 there. Encouraged innovation to bring a radical change. 108 number itself. 1 plus 0 plus 8 is 9. Lucky number. Friendship word, if you give A as 1, B as 2, C as 3, when you add up friendship, it comes to 108. All these kind of things I was to do, calling a driver as a pilot. You are a pilot. Everybody objected. How can you call a driver as a pilot? I said, why not? Is there anything constitutional bar? When I asked that pilot, he said, sir, I will not drink and drive. As a driver, I will drink and drive. As a pilot, no. As a driver, I can take tips, but not as a pilot. As a pilot, I will coordinate and collaborate with the paramedic in the ambulance. Innovation across, not just number, across the systems, business system. I invested in leadership development. I remember when Razu went to jail in the next 2 months, Jan 9th when he went, Feb 16th, I called Professor Ranjan Das from IIM Cal to do visioning and strategizing exercise. People said, you are a mad fellow, your boss is not there, there is no owner, and you are doing leadership development and strategizing and visioning. And I improved my public visibility during crisis time. I appeared more on the media to tell them, we are not dead, we are actually alive, doing much better things than what we were before. I learned to be humble because you are nobody in uncertainty. When you are humble, people respect you and listen to you. During the COVID times, nobody listened to me. I can't go on lecture physically. So I prepared 4-minute videos. On 108 topics, I prepared 4-minute videos on leadership, managerial skills, and life skills. On 108 topics, already 81 were already uploaded. Every Saturday they get uploaded. Lastly, about my personal habits to bring a radical change, to manage uncertainty, I learned to be more proactive than being reactive. Number 2, I learned to be more self-confident, energetic and enthusiastic. I learned to be more healthy during COVID times. I lost weight, I ate less, I walked more. And I was connected more to my friends, more to my relatives, more to my professional associates. I wanted to be the nicest guy, during uncertain times. I read, I learned, I taught, I reflected more or less every day, whether on leadership or on spiritual topics or on technology or successful stories. To conclude, I can only say I avoided negative people, negative sources, negative ideas during the uncertain time or during the time of radical change, because everybody discourages. Nothing will happen, as if the world is collapsing. Adversity, I found, this uncertainty I found is like walking through fire. I emerged as gold, more confident, more humane, more humble, and more positive. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Venkat Singhaveli. Excellent. Thank you very much. And I think since we have already crossed 6 o'clock, I will not take any questions because I also have to go for another meeting. I'll just sum up. I think all the three speakers have brought out the whole issue of, managing radical change very well, and the kind of experiences they've had with the whole issue in their own academic institutions and in their own professional life. I think Director IIM Lucknow was very clear about this, that you have to call this disruption when you're talking of radical change. And the kind of thing you're talking about what COVID was, it was not really a question of uncertainty, but it was disruptive. And even technology, as I said in the beginning, the kind of changes that technology are bringing about, that is kind of disruptive change that technology is bringing in. So now, in this situation, a leader has to be ready to respond to disruptive change. And that is where she also focused on leadership competencies, leadership having long-term views, and handling these kind of situations. As an academic, she's rightly pointed out that for all facing this kind of a situation, we need to develop leadership competencies, and how the leadership competencies can be built up through training modules, through how you communicate these things to budding leaders and build them up to face these kind of situations. I think that is very, very important. And Director Jaipuria, Kavita Pathak carried this forward, and with a nice story of Alice in Wonderland to begin with, which road to take. I think that's very important to begin with. You should know the direction you want to go in. If you don't know the direction, you can't be a change agent, or you can't manage change or bring about any kind of change. And then she said, ultimately, you have to learn to live with uncertainty. And at the same time, you have to think of bringing about change as much as possible in the situation possible. So I think she brought this out so very well in her talk. I remember going to Jaipuria so often, being a member of the academic council and all also. I noticed how she was bringing about that change there when she was saying that teachers have to move out of their classrooms. And she said that. That was a very interesting point for me. She said teaching not only in the classroom, but move out of the classroom, go out in the community, understand what the community wants, interact and engage with the community, and that should be part of the education process. And I found her, the way she attended to that issue, when the teachers in the beginning were not willing to come to understand that. They were resisting that change. And then she talked to them. Then there were many other experts who came, and HR experts who talked to them. And slowly, then the teachers started responding. They coming out with their own ideas. Then the students also started responding. And the whole kind of change was brought about. Similarly, I must laud Director Archana Shuklaji's, I think, initiative she took of training government. She took the initiative of the entire government machinery, from the Chief Minister downwards, was sitting for 2 days completely in the classrooms. The Chief Minister said 3 days, she's saying, sitting in the classroom from morning till evening. And she had the courage to say, oh, no, this is possible. And she went with this proposal, and they got a response from there, and they, okay, let's do it. And they all came, ministers sitting there, senior officers sitting, like, good students responding to the case studies and the various problems thrown up to them, discussing in a very animated manner. And I talked to many of them later on. They said it was a great learning experience. So that, I think, this is change. You bring about this kind of change, the whole thing. You bring about the change in the environment and make the change happen. And of course, they both, Kavita ji and Archana Shukla ji, talked about the dehumanization part of COVID. I think that is very, very important. Though Venkat Singhaveli gave his answer on how he handled the dehumanization part by making it more human, by, in his personal life, by interacting more with people, looking after himself better. He responded to that challenge. But of course, yes, in any organization, it does affect team building. It does dehumanize the whole thing. And that is a very big challenge which COVID had posed. But all said and done, COVID is one thing, but that doesn't mean if COVID is over, such challenges will not come in the future. There may be natural calamities, there may be many uncertainties, and more than uncertainties, the factor is crisis. So how do you, there are three things, as I said, managing a risk, managing an uncertainty, and managing a crisis. They're all three different kind of things. Crisis is something which, simply you're not aware, you can't predict, and you don't know how to go about it. You don't have any mentor, you don't have any guide, just like COVID was. I think COVID was a crisis. Uncertainty can come in a business situation where the economic environment changes very fast. Now, like Ukraine war, somebody said, is also, suddenly the oil prices will go up, suddenly the stock market will crash, suddenly so many things will happen all over around you. So you have to immediately respond to that kind of thing. So these things are uncertainty and risk, as I said, is something, the third thing altogether. Venkat Sangavelaji just talk about it, great, what Dial 100 experience. Yes, we had a great time in that Dial 100 at that time. It was so full of passion, all of us, the chief minister leading us. And somehow the biggest thing was that we all believed that it could happen. Most people felt that it could not happen. And most of all, it could not happen in Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh having a slight perception issue. And with a population of 220 million, can you implement the world's largest police emergency response system? It is the world's largest, by the way. Nowhere in the world is this kind of a system available, catering to 220 million people. And then one phone call and response coming, training the women officers, selecting the women officers, developing SOPs, and talking to the police force. So much happened, and the technology part that came in. It was the way it was, the whole thing happened. It was a great learning experience indeed. It was a great case study. That just shows how you can make change happen in a big way. And that change will, for years, I think this will change how the police force works in the state of Uttar Pradesh. And not only Uttar Pradesh, many states have started trying to follow that model. Some states have already done it. Many are trying to do it. So it will change the way policing is looked at all over the country. So this is change. But this is change is just use technology to bring about a kind of change, a complete change in the way the whole work is done, the work culture is there. So it's all there. So there is a change which you cannot predict. There is a change you can bring about. All said and done, above all sits the leader. And the leader is the most important person. I think all three of them said, a leader must anticipate, a leader must understand, a leader must persuade, a leader must communicate, a leader must participate, a leader must know where he's going, what he's doing, and take the whole team forward. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. Thank you very much for a most excellent and very absorbing discussion. Wish we could have carried this further, but the time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for great steering, sir. Pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can leave.
Hello. Thank you very much, sir. We had a very informed discussion, and two academicians and two management practitioners. It was an excellent panel, and we had a very, very fruitful discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you.